This is the Lean Builders Hoots on the Ground podcast with absolutely, positively no bullshito. Join us as we dig into exactly what lean construction is and how we can use these concepts and strategies in the field. This podcast will be different as we journey to job sites and mine the minds of lean builders, all in effort to pass forward building knowledge from those who have put their time in to learn a better way. Because that's just what lean builders do. What's up, y'all? Adam Hoots here, the Lean Builder Podcast, Hoots on the Ground with no bullshito. And today I got a very, very special guest for us. Super excited, Mr. L.R. Weeden, Mr. Leandris Weeden. Help us understand, who are you, man? You got all these personalities. Take me a little bit through who Lee is.
What's going on, Hoots, man? Thanks for having me on. As you said, LR, that's my first two initials. I actually adopted that moniker because my grandfather, who got me into construction, he went by his first two initials, RT. But my name is Leandris. Most people call me Lee. So that's a rhyme and reason behind those names.
I like that. Yeah, heck yeah. What was your grandfather's name?
His name was Robert Thomas.
Robert Thomas.
He was a guy who did a residential fire restoration. So that's how I even got involved in construction, period. Started learning about it.
Nice. Did he start training you early?
12 years old, man.
Man, and actually on the job site sweating for him?
On the job site, sweating, carpentry work, flat concrete work, roofing, actual old school glazing where you take the windows out, remove the wooden jambs, hit them with the little flame, clean all that out, reglaze the windows. Yeah.
That's amazing, man. Heck yeah. Tell us more. Go in a little bit deeper detail. Who is LR?
And I'm really just a guy who's passionate about construction and trying to help people, especially younger folks, get into the industry that look like me. Because when I was coming out of college, graduating, you look around, you say, man, where's everybody that looks like me in construction? So just really exposing people to the industry and tell them how great it is to build things. Because a lot of people look at construction like, I don't want to do that dirty, grungy work. Bringing back some respectability to the trades and the industry. It's like, hey, guys, we're out here, man. Come join us.
Absolutely. I love that. You're taking and inspiring a whole generation of folks. Reminds me, Henry Nutt wrote a book called The Seven Principles, which is fantastic. And it's the same purpose, like just spreading the message of, hey, there's a wonderful industry out here, and it's not all what people make it out to feel like, that there's opportunity for leadership, there's opportunity for management, there's really a whole nother route. And I love how you said, get people in the industry that look like me, because quite honestly, a lot of them look like me, and we don't have a whole lot of empathy for folks. It's unfortunate, and maybe empathy is not the right word, but it's really, how do we spread a message? Perspective is everything. And when we get a bunch of people that look just the same, we're going to get the same results. But when we can start mixing it up, whether it's race or religion or sex, we're starting to see a lot of the female population enter the construction industry. And that's what it's all about, is when we get all these different perspectives, because we all think different based on that way we were brought up and our backgrounds and our environments. And if we're going to change an industry, that's what we need to do, is really start to understand and allow people to flourish from their own perspective. I love that, man. And I'm a huge fan of yours. Just know that. Follow you constantly out there on LinkedIn. I love just staying up with what you're doing. What is the latest in LR's world? What are you working on? What gets you passionate?
It's funny you ask. I guess the latest and greatest here since January this year is more. And I was a superintendent for Layton Construction in the healthcare business unit. So I got hired on as a superintendent. I was working on the job, and then probably November, December, got asked if I was interested in doing a lean manager advocate role. So I'm like, okay, let me think about this. I thought about it for a day, and I was like, all right, really, I have nothing to lose, so I'm going to go for it. And that's what I've been working in here the last 6 months. So.
Yeah. Well, so take me down that role. You've practiced lean as a superintendent, or what?
I have practiced. I would say that I'm a novice. I'm relatively new to it, but I've been able to The tools is the easy part. The people side is the hard part. So anybody can use the tools because it's just a tool. But for me, it's getting to know the men and women that are out here on our projects, that are building these jobs, the trade partners that we're working with. How can we adapt those tools and make them usable from a people standpoint? So I just been going around visiting job sites, getting to know people. Sometimes I show up and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing? Are you taking somebody's place here? Is your superintendent?" I was like, "No, man, I'm really just here to see what you all need." And so a lot of times people are hesitant at first. "God, man, we don't really need anything." You start talking to them. Man, what if you come in the trailer in the first 2 minutes, you can figure out what's going on the job site without even talking to anybody? They was like, you know, that's a good idea, man. I was like, yeah, man, some visual communications will help things mapped out, logistics plan, flow of the job, how you plan on building the plan. So just getting people to think outside of the box a little bit, because the folks that are doing these jobs, man, they're pretty talented. They're smart. It's just a matter of, hey, I never thought about it that way. So
Yeah, it's just a matter of asking some open-ended, inquisitive questions to really get them thinking about what can I do different to make this project easier for the people doing the work.
yep.
I love it. And Jason Schroeder's tact planning book, we came up with a metric and we called it the STA, which is the Skilled Trades Alliance that I'm very much associated with, but we call it the STA ECC, and that stands for Elementary Classroom Clarity Metric.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole purpose of the metric is, okay, can I bring a class of third graders into your construction trailer and allow them to kind of roam around and look at the things on the walls or under the table? And just, can you tell me as a third grader what's happening on the job site now and tomorrow? And if it's clear enough for a third grader to understand, then it's clear enough for our trade partners to understand.
Absolutely.
So speaking to exactly what you're talking about. So what's been the biggest challenge moving into this new role from being a superintendent and now the lean guy, right?
Like I said, one of the biggest challenges is that nobody really knows me, because when you're on a job site, you work with a team of people. So now it's, hey, there's this guy, he's doing this new role, but we don't really know who it is. So you got to get to know people, number one. And then number two is it's almost you're on an island now, because everybody's, oh, you do lean, or you're focused on lean initiatives and how to make things better. We already do things good. So what can we do better? So that's, I wouldn't say it's been a challenge, but it's been an opportunity. So just taking that opportunity, like I say, to get to know the men and women building these jobs, and trying to say, hey, let's think about things a little differently. And then even the Lean Builder, the book itself is, to me, is written from a field standpoint. So just asking folks like, man, there's this book called The Lean Builder. Hey, you guys ever heard of? And they're like, no, what is that? You send them the Amazon link, and it's like, okay. I'm like, but remember, it's written from a superintendent standpoint, so it'll be easy to understand. And I think people have been fairly receptive, at least ears open. And okay, yeah, I get that. Maybe we should do that. Or that's a great idea. I'm going to try that. So
Yeah, it's not bullshito, right? It's not a lean consultant coming in and saying, "Oh, you got to do this or you're not building lean if you're not doing this." No,
yeah,
you nailed it. It's about the people, and do the people feel like they matter on the projects, or more importantly, do the people matter on the job sites? How do you continuously show them that? And no matter how good you are, right? You could be running the most perfect project in the world. You can still get a little bit better every single day.
yes.
I love what you're talking about. What? So healthcare, Layton, you said, and are you
Mm-hmm.
traveling the country or are you just staying local?
No, right now, I've probably got projects that we're covering in about 8 to 10 different states. So
Holy,
really, from the west all the way up to North Carolina, we've got projects all over. So there's a lot of in between. Sometimes there's a lot of travel. Right now, the last couple of weeks hadn't been as much, but it'll pick back up. Really, just the biggest thing for me was trying to get something put together where I could give folks an overview of what this is. Because when you ask people what LPS is, the first thing that they say is, "Oh, pool planning."
that's that pool
I'm like,
planning stuff,
yeah,
right?
pool planning is not really what it's called. It's actually called phase planning, but pool planning is
Yes.
just a technique that we use. But we can talk about that, and then okay, even if you do a phase pool plan, what do you do with that material afterwards? I don't know. So, oh, man, it's just like a CPM schedule. If you don't use it, it's pointless. So you got to take that plan and you start talking about making work ready and all these other production terms. Most construction folks, they don't know what they don't know. We're just not trained in terms of production. We've been trained in terms of project management. So we use all these project management tools, but no production tools. So it's like making work ready. And it's like, all right, I don't know what that means. How do you level work? I have no idea. What does that mean? Work packages. I don't know what those are. Are you talking about like CSI division? So it's really just getting the information out there to individuals and letting them know, hey, there is other tools and terminologies that we can think about in terms of construction that may sound like manufacturing, but it's still related to construction.
Yeah, we're taking and learning from manufacturing, bending it and making it work for our job sites. 100% agree with that. And like you said, a lot of times, and even a lot of companies just, lean equals pool planning. I see that all the time, and it's so much grander than that. And even with the last planner system, you very eloquently said you got the master schedule, and then you got the phase schedule, which, yeah, we use the pool as a technique of that, and then you're making work ready, then you've got weekly work plan, and then daily huddles. And most people, that it stops there, but we're doing all of that in order to learn from what we're successful at and what we're failing at, and then we feed that information back up into the top. And that feedback loop is the part where most companies fall short. So man, I'm so excited to hear you say that. You clearly know your stuff. You call yourself a novice earlier. I would like to challenge that a little bit and just say you've clearly done your research, your homework. You're clearly a great superintendent, or they wouldn't have offered the position to you. What other tools other than Last Planner System do you love to see on project sites?
Honestly, visual communication, which is it's really like low hanging fruit, man. But I go in a lot of job trailers and the walls are like naked. Man, there's a lot of wall space here. You could have literally milestone dates on the wall of critical milestones. You could have floor plans on the wall, logistics plans. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things that we could be using that wall space for besides just nothing. Visual communication is one of them. I hadn't quite talked to people about this yet, but I think incorporating, like when we're doing our JSAs or pre-task planning, the PTPs, incorporating like a 5S aspect, but just do the first 3S's of it and say, okay, we're going to do this every day. We're going to 3S our job every morning. And so I think from a safety standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. It's just, hey, how do I get people to think about this? First of all, what is the 5S? Get people educated on that. But I really can see some benefits from incorporating 3S into PTP or JSA. And then even 2-second lean, just maybe say, hey, once a month, we're going to ask folks to make a video of what you did for your 3S improvement, how you made your workspace better. But to me, it's really like common sense. Like, hey, why wouldn't it be straight and short and sweep your area every day? It only makes sense to keep the workspace clean.
Absolutely. I love that. And you just took my next question right away. I was going to have you run us through exactly what those S's are, but you just nailed it. Sort them, setting them in order, and then shine them.
Mm-hmm.
Those three things are the way, or sweeps. It says the same thing. Keep your job site clean so that you can see that quality, see that safety. You're dropping big words with Paul Akers, 2-second lean. I mean, I'm starting to think you might be more of an expert than you're really leading us on to believe here, LR.
I don't think so, Hoots, man. Really, I think the other thing for me has been the LinkedIn platform. To me, I don't know that a lot of people like myself. A few years ago, I would use LinkedIn, just, hey, I'd add people and never really do anything with it. But now I've seen some benefits of actual, especially since COVID, of being able to network with people, just reach out and, hey, you got a second to have a 15-minute conversation. I saw something you posted that was interested and I'd like to learn more about. And it almost gives you access to virtually anybody in the professional network for free. And there's so much information that's posted there weekly that you can go learn from and do research on. If you got questions, 9 out of 10 people are more than happy to talk to you about it. So that has been a great platform for me to continue to meet people in this space and just try to learn and develop my skill sets. And like I said, everybody that I've spoken to, including yourself, has been like, hey man, if you ever need anything, let me know. It's not, hey, if you need something, let me know, but I'm going to charge you for this. It's almost, here you go, man. We need to do this to improve the industry. Even though you may work for competing companies, people are trying to push the industry forward, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I feel you said it too. Like right before COVID, it was always like, I'm not helping you. Like you're the competition. If I help you, it might not be so great. You might take my secrets or you might do something. And now we're really starting to see a blur between company lines where people are encouraging one another. We're learning from each other. I'll tell you this, and would love to get somebody from Layton on, and you don't qualify anymore because you're not a superintendent. But I've been having lean coffees, superintendents only. We got about 15 folks that joined from a dozen different companies nationwide, and they're big companies. The J.E. Dunn's, the Mortensen sent a few people, Walsh, and all these folks are participating. And would love to get somebody from Layton in there, but I'm really seeing some folks who are encouraging one another. We're giving ideas out, and it just like the celebration of the industry is unbelievable. And um, I think LinkedIn as a platform is really starting to take off. At least from my perspective, I've gotten a lot of people reaching out, a lot of people tuning into the show, just talking about, hey, picking up little nuggets from our conversations and things like that are just encouraging or reaching out, like you said, cross pollinating the industry. Before you know it, we're in the process of setting standards for the industry that our trade partners are going to benefit from in the long run. So
Absolutely.
awesome points. Who are we going to bring on from Layton for that conversation, do you
I
think?
don't know. I think there's one person, maybe two people that I can identify. One of them's out in, there's a project we have out in Vegas. We actually got a couple of campuses out there working on, but they are just getting ready to kick off a couple of projects simultaneously. And they're in the process of using Touch Planner and getting trade partners geared up and ready to start trying to do some phase pool planning, which they've done one. And should be a pretty straightforward project, but they got a great team out there, this Mountain View campus, and I think the superintendent there would be a pretty good candidate. He's pretty sharp, so
Heck yeah.
we'll
Well,
have to
good. I'm looking forward to
talk to him
learning with
about that.
him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Let's see. So again, and I'm not going to let you skate this question either. Like you keep, again, you're not a novice. So one, I just want you to own that, and then to help everybody understand your lean journey a little bit deeper. I know you started as a superintendent. You're
Mhm.
relative. You might be a
Uh,
novice in this role, but take us down your lean
I
journey.
would
What that looks
say lean journey. I never really heard the term lean until maybe 2019, but in 2014, I was in Cincinnati, Ohio, was working on the Cincinnati Children's Hospital campus. And I got there. Um, we were doing a lot of what we call SPA projects, special accounts projects from anywhere from 5,000 up to 20 million on the campus. Could be a cath lab renovation, all the way to a full demo of areas and rebuild back to just refresh carpet and paint in spaces. But when I got there, I heard this Toyota was thrown around, and I was like, oh, what the heck are they talking about Toyota for? And we would have these meetings every morning. We call them, typically folks call them daily huddles. We call them pod meetings, and like plan of the day. We had these
like.
boards built, and they'd open up, and there was probably 20 projects going on simultaneously. So everybody had a 15-minute time slot, and we'd get all the foremen around this board, and we'd go up there and write, hey, how many guys you got today? What are y'all working? Is there anything you need from us? And at the time, I had no clue what I was doing. They was just like, this is what we do here. I was like, okay, cool. So we started doing these pods, and then we'd have our coordination meetings every week, and they'd want the trades to come with a weekly work plan, like prepared and give it to us. And I was like, okay, never heard of this before, but sounds good. And then they had these meetings that were basically phase pull plans, but then they were calling them like reverse phase pull plans. So I was like, all right, cool. I've seen something like this before. So that's kind of I was exposed to it, and I just started doing this stuff inadvertently because hey, this is what we were doing there. I was like, all right, I guess I need to fall in line. So that was in 2014. I worked at that campus for about 2 years, 2.5 years, and then after that, I never saw anything else related to lean until about 2019. And then at that point, I was like, I want to learn where the stuff comes from. Why is it relatable to construction? Why should we even think about using this? And then I started picking up these books, Toyota Way, Lean Builder, Paul Akers' 2-Second Lean. Started just listening to people talk and some of the information that was being pushed out on various platforms. And I was like, all right, let me start digging into this a little more. And then really the lean builder for me was, it's almost like you mentioned earlier, written like elementary wise from a superintendent standpoint. So it's easy for me to understand, hey, start small and work your way through. You don't have to bite off the whole piece of pie. You can just nibble at this corner. Start with this part. Start having daily huddle. All right, cool. What can you do next? All right, let's start looking at the next 6 weeks and then just move on from there. But a lot of people, I think, get overwhelmed with, dang, this whole thing, I got to do all these pieces and manage the schedule. And they're like, man, but really, in essence, a good superintendent is doing these things anyways. He's just not calling it what we call it. He's holding people accountable. He's having these meetings where he's looking at what they're going to do every week. We used to call them 4-week look aheads. Instead of calling it look ahead, you need to call it make work ready planning. But you have to understand what it means to make work ready. Like, we're really intentionally trying to make these tasks ready for these trades. So when they get there, they're like, all right, cool, I can do my work now. So it's not going to happen 100% of the time, but if you can get it 80% of the time versus this 54% number that we were getting before, 9 out of 10, you're going to finish the job on time. And even on time, not necessarily early, on time, there's only 32%, 35% of jobs that finish on time. So if you're doing that, you're actually accomplishing a big feat.
And you're more likely to hit your budget too if you're on time, right?
Yep.
You're not spending unnecessary GCs. Man, I love what you're talking about. You're picking up on something that I like. Almost every project I go to, they're doing something lean already. They're just not calling it lean. And that's okay. In fact, I encourage that. Sometimes those words, I got words that just bug the heck out of me. And lean, who gives a shit what we call it, right?
Yep.
Green jacket, gold jacket, who gives a shit? As long as we are making work ready, like you have said a couple of times, and then also removing the burden from the people who are actually doing the work, because there
Mm-hmm.
are people in our industry who are suffering, and the mid-level management, yes, sometimes they suffer, and I don't
Yep.
want to get away from that, but the people who are actually suffering are the ones who are doing the labor in the field, who get the job done, and then they think they're done, and then we come in and we say, "Oh, I forgot about this RFI. Like
Yeah.
that wall is supposed to be over there," and they're just like
Yeah.
defeated morally, and then we create rework, and then
Yep.
insert the 8 wastes here, the defects, the
Mm-hmm.
transportation movement, overproduction, et cetera, et cetera.
And I think also what you said was a few weeks ago. I might have been listening to somebody on YouTube talk. I think it was Jason Schroeder. But if we think about OSHA recordables and OSHA fatalities, and that number, you're like, oh man, this is a substantial number. And then you look at the suicide rate that's in the construction industry. You say the suicide rate is 4 times how many people die from OSHA injuries, fatalities, and you're like, wow, it's almost makes you step back and think, hey, what are we doing differently than all these other industries are doing? Are people really under this much stress? How can we alleviate some of these things? So it takes you to a different mindset if you look at the suicide rate and the mental health that a lot of these men and women are dealing with that are building these jobs. And then, like you say, if you don't really get to know these people and just stop them a couple of minutes a day, hey, how you even ask the question, man, how's your mental health today? Folks will probably look at you. What do you mean? You care about my mental health? I've never had anybody ask me that. Most people say, hey, hi, and bye. But a lot of people used to live by the golden rule, treat people the way they want to be treated. But I think there's the platinum rule now, treat people the way that, that they choose to be treated. So in order to do that, you got to get to know an individual to treat them the way that they want to be treated. Not necessarily the way that you want to be treated, but how they want to be treated.
Yeah, sometimes that's uncomfortable when you're getting out there. And again, you're not talking to folks that you deal with on a daily basis. And
Yep.
so that's not always easy to just walk up to somebody, especially if they're in the field doing work and then saying, "Hey, how's your mental health today?" That
Mm-hmm.
is not an easy conversation. But we've realized when we get outside of our comfort zone, when we get through that fear zone, that we start to approach the learning zone. And
Yep.
when we continuously enter that learning zone, now we break through that into the growth zone and we start to grow as human beings. And
I agree.
that's where
Yeah.
it's all at.
A few years ago, a fraternity I'm in, we had a member of the fraternity who apparently he was having some mental health issues. It made national news. This guy went around and he randomly killed this guy up in Ohio. And he made this Facebook Live video, and he was saying how people would ridicule him or they would make fun of him. Nobody really wanted to listen. He tried to talk to people. So they started this initiative called Brother, You're on My Mind. And one of the things was just pick up the phone and randomly call and check on people and say, hey, man, you're on my mind. I just want to call and check on you, see how you doing, how's the family, how's your mental health. Sometimes you ask that question, you'll be surprised at the answers you get. Some people are like, man, you're really struggling right now, but nobody's ever asked me that. So I think just being vulnerable enough to even ask the question, get people to open up. And then it may be a situation where you're helping this person get some help and they didn't want to do it or they were afraid to talk about it, and you asking that question just opens that door. Okay, cool. But that 4 times the suicide rate of most industries, man, is one of the things that really stuck with me. Man, how do we change this?
It's unacceptable. On top of that, 15% of all construction workers have substance abuse problems.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these things are a direct result of not managing projects in the way they should be. And sometimes those are unrealistic owner requirements or inaccurate designs or skilled trade workers that aren't so skilled anymore. And again, all of these are that value proposition for why lean construction, just building in a better format, an open format, and being open to being wrong and failing and experimenting and just understanding what can I do different in order to make an impact on this industry. I love the Brother, You're on My Mind. I'm proud to be on your list because I'm living proof that, hey, you do that, right? Like you have sent me text messages, you call me and just say, hey man, just thinking about you, how are you, what's going on? And man, in those moments, those are really cool. It puts a smile on my face, and it's just, man, somebody cares about me enough to just reach out to me. That is a really cool gesture. So thank you for including me on your list. I'm proud to be a brother of yours, and I'm grateful for your support from that perspective.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you this question. I'll ask you a few more questions, and I want to dive into a little bit of uncharted territory because that's what we do here. We're open, we have good conversation that propels the industry forward. But
Yep.
start a little bit easier. What 3 books, and you've named a few already, and if that's the case, that's fine. But what 3 books should every person in the industry?
That's a great question. I would definitely say The Lean Builder, not just because this is the
That's a
Lean
given.
Builder podcast, but The Lean Builder is to me, it's very easy to read. If you picked it up and you're a construction person, and you can probably read the book in 2 days or 2 or 3 days.
Very catchy novel
Yeah,
story.
absolutely. Paul Akers' 2-Second Lean, to me, it's related to manufacturing, but it puts you in the mindset of how can we make small improvements every day. And then even he's got an app where you can listen to it, the chapters on this app. And then I think Jason Schroeder's book, Elevating Superintendents. First time I read through it, yeah, that
Keep it
one,
close, baby.
it's almost, I don't know, like a playbook for superintendents, because I think when I was first officially called a superintendent, I was 29 and I had a general superintendent, senior superintendent on a project. And we would walk the job and they would point out stuff and they'd ask me questions, but there was no, hey, formal training. Hey, this is how you be a superintendent. This is what you should look for. This is how you run meetings. These are the things that you should do every day. Open the drawings, study the drawings for 30 minutes a day. Go out and walk the field and let the project talk to you. Look for things. So those type of things are, you just learn as you go. But I think if there was like a blueprint per se, read this and start incorporating these things in how you do work, then it would be excellent. Because a lot of people on the PM side of things, there's, hey, we're going to walk you through how you do submittals, how you look up CSIs, how you formulate RFIs. When you go out in the field, it's throw you to the wolves. Go get it.
You're on an island. Yeah.
Yeah. And then even I would say the third book, it's kind of I would say it's a difficult read, but it's a little different for construction folks, is The Toyota Way. Just getting familiar with the Toyota Way. And even I was talking to a guy I met on LinkedIn actually, and he'd been around lean stuff for probably 25 years. And he said, man, Toyota, they don't really even know what lean is, you know? You ask them, what's your lean initiative? They look at you, what are you talking about? He's like, man, Toyota didn't do lean to be lean. They did it because it made sense for their business model. So the things that they're doing is like, oh, we're doing this to be lean. He said, no, we're doing this because this is a smart business move for us. Even if we are 2% better than our competitors, that 2% is going to give us a competitive advantage. So I think people thinking about it not only have to realize that, hey, we're not just doing this to say we're lean. We're actually trying to do this to change the way we do business and not only give us a competitive advantage, but make the work environment better for the people that are doing the job, the frontline workers at the gemba.
Yeah. What's the gemba, Li?
You got to go to the gemba, man. If you don't go to the gemba, then you're missing the whole point. That's where all the work is happening. Even when you're making work ready, it could be 6 weeks ahead of time. But go to the gemba, you're probably going to see something that stands out that you may not have saw from your meetings in the office trailer. Hey, let's actually go out and look where we're going to be doing this work in 6 weeks. See what we see. Is the space even ready now? No, there's a big hole right there in the floor. We definitely need to have that filled in, or stuff like that that you won't see during your coordination meeting. If you go to the gemba, you're going to.
And gemba is that Japanese word for where the value is being created. Job site, it's the project. And I'll tell you a phrase that drives me nuts, and I really haven't dove, especially in this podcast, but when people talk about the gemba walk, we are not going to the gemba and walking. We are going to the gemba and standing in our ono circle, and we're going to observe. Or I think the Japanese have something called uda, right?
Yep.
You observe, orient, then you decide and act. And too
Yep.
many times are we walking into the spot where value is created and we're just deciding and acting, and we're not orienting ourselves or observing what's actually happening. And that's leading to a lot of decisions that are just plain wrong and not valuing our people on the job site. And man, you're going to get me fired up here and on that slippery slope. But you mentioned earlier, as soon as we like one thing you're passionate about is spreading the word and getting more people that look like you in the industry. What things are you doing to encourage that, enrich that, or spread that message?
Oh, and I tell you, it's always hard because when you look around, a lot of people don't see construction as even a valuable trade anymore, a valuable career path. Just having conversations with folks like, man, you talk to people like, hey, what do you do? So I just do construction, man. It's like, really? Like, you do construction? I was like, yeah, man. It's a little different than what you may think it is, but it's still construction. And even reaching out to, folks who are still in college right now, sophomore, junior, seniors, they could be from LinkedIn or somebody that I connect with and say, hey, let's just have a conversation. Like, hey, tell me about the industry. I want to know how to get in the industry. Because when you graduate, a lot of these folks don't have any really body that works in the industry. So they're like, okay, I'm done now. What do I do? What can I do? Nobody knows. They say, hey, man, maybe you should be looking for project engineer jobs or field engineer jobs. Or are you more inclined to go work on the field management side? Or are you more inclined to go work on the project management side? What does that really look like? So for me, it's trying to talk to them and say, okay, you want to do this? Maybe I can connect you with this person and say, even if you just have a conversation with them and learn more about it, it may not result in anything, but just having that person in your network. So there's a guy he was my college track coach. And he's been coaching high school kids, middle school kids, probably the last 15 years. And there's a guy, he says, man, this kid, man, he's at JUCO, but he doesn't want to go to school. And what can he do? I was like, man, he can come to the trades. I went out and met this guy about 2 months ago, and I actually connected him with a company in St. Louis. They started a prefabrication offsite, a metal stud, exterior wall place. But I knew this guy from a project I worked on 12 years ago. Weiss Drywall, a guy named Dan, real good guy. And I said, Dan, I got this kid, man, he's 20 years old, just graduated last year. He's in JUCO, but he doesn't want to go to college. He says, hey, send him my way. So they took him out and showed him like a carpentry apprentice school and showed him everything that they were doing there. So just really trying to connect people in those ways, or if it could be somebody who's in college, hey, what can I do? I got this internship, but I don't know if I want to be a PM. I don't know if I want to be a superintendent. So really just trying to talk to the younger generation and show them, hey, there is a pathway to get to where you're going. It may not be the easiest pathway, but you need to learn how to have conversations with people. You need to learn how to network. You need to learn how to make relationship deposits. You know what I'm saying? Because you can't go to anybody and expect to withdraw something if you don't put in any deposits. It's like, it's going to fall on deaf ears. Oh, okay, that's awesome. Click on to the next person. But if you've been building a rapport and a relationship with people, just like trade partners, when you really need something, if you've been the asshole the whole job, that guy's like, I'm not doing that for him. Like, why? But if you've been there cultivating that relationship, even though it may be tough sometimes, tough love, but and they're like, all right, man, they really need this done. I'm going to go the extra mile to get that done. This industry is really about relationships at the end of the day and people.
Amen. It's all about people. It's a beautiful thing. Are you familiar with Davis and Walker with the Laying Foundations podcast?
I've seen them post a lot here recently on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, but I hadn't had a chance to actually listen to it yet.
You should check them out and engage with them. They've got, so Davis has put together this next generation builders event, and we're doing the first one right here at Clemson. And it's basically going to be a panel of some lean practitioners. And our entire goal around the event is to equip the next generation of builders to come into the industry and make a difference. And so I
Okay.
hear you saying a lot of the same thing. And the goal is after this first successful event and we get some marketing material, we want to take this on like a college game day tour type of
Mm-hmm.
event to all the different colleges throughout the nation. So I would love to be able to partner you into that, especially just hearing kind of your initiatives and everything that you're chasing, because I couldn't agree more with what you're doing and would love to support you in every way. So let's find a way to get you involved there, huh?
Okay.
Absolutely. So, as an industry, and again, another tough question, but how are we doing from a diversity, equality, and inclusion perspective?
I think the industry is making some great strides in the last 15 years. I still believe that there's a great opportunity to improve from a diversity, equity, and inclusion standpoint. I think the biggest thing is really education. If people are saying that they want to be a diverse company because they want to have this thought process and think tank of all different types of individuals coming together, then you have to recruit from places besides Auburn, besides Texas A&M, besides Iowa State, because you're only going to get the same type of people. So you need to go to the Tuskegees of the world, the North Carolina A&Ts, Alabama A&Ms, to find individuals that don't look like people that work at your companies.
Amen.
But it has to be intentional.
Yes.
So there, you'll hear a lot of people that talk about it, but to me, it's you're talking about it, but are you really doing it? Are you really living the creed that you say you are?
We
And
got
not,
a we got a saying in my household, and we don't talk about it, we be about it.
yeah. So a lot of times, and for me, I graduated from college in 2005. When I graduated, there were maybe 150 in my graduating class, and we probably had a handful of females. We had maybe two African American females, which I don't even think either one of those two are even in the industry anymore, unfortunately.
Mm.
But just going out, and honestly, it's sometimes it's tough because you look around and you're like, and who can I go talk to that I can kind of instantly connect with? Because a lot of times you have affinity bias, and you're more inclined to go talk to people that look like you or think like you or come from the same places. And that's been the hardest part. I could go some places and you'd be look through the company profile and you're like, boop, boop, boop. Man, I don't see any superintendents that are black. And sometimes it's hard to find, but it's a matter of casting that net a little wider from different places where we're pulling the talent from.
Amen. So we're doing okay, but it sounds like we still got a lot of work to do.
Oh, yeah.
And you mentioned one crucial step: be intentional. Reach out to some of the HBCUs, some of the
Mm-hmm.
colleges that you're under recruiting.
Yep.
What are some of the other steps that folks can take to really show intentionality behind diversity?
I'm not very familiar with it. I've only seen it, but ACE mentoring program
Yeah.
seems to be a great avenue to do that. Not that it's in every location, but I think even the communities we work in, if we look at those communities and we look at our staff, if our staff doesn't really look like the communities we work in, we probably have an issue there. So we probably want to start with, hey, maybe there's somewhere we can go and partner up with local schools and just go into the schools maybe once a month or once a quarter, talk to them about construction. Because 9 out of 10, when you ask kids 8 to 15 what they want to do, a lot of it is sports related. A lot of it is what they see on social media.
YouTube
You know,
influencer.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they're not really seeing construction. Oh my God, this guy does construction. Or so I think really starting there with the youth and trying to get them when they're at a younger age. When I was in school, we even had, I guess we called it wood shop. we're working class. I don't even think they take stuff like this out of schools now. I mean, kids are at a disadvantage. Everybody's, you have to go to college. You have to go to college. It's like, why? You could take that first 4 years, go do an apprenticeship. And the 4 years that you could have been in college, you're getting paid. Plus, you're going to be making a pretty decent living once you get done with that.
Yeah, and both paths wind up to the same spot.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you're going to be an executive or an owner of a company. To be quite honest, when you told me that your grandfather taught you carpentry at an early age, like to me, there's nobody better in the industry than somebody who has actually done the physical labor, who's actually been there in the trenches, so to speak, with the folks. And I mean, that drives the ultimate respect. In fact, I'm a firm believer that even management staff, superintendents, PMs, PEs, they need to be out there once a month doing the work with the people who are living that day to day so that they really get some empathy for what the real conditions on the job site are.
Yeah.
I think that's so important and just makes a better leader when you know what the entire perspective feels like. I do this sometimes with some folks, and I'm really curious. I'd love for you to just take a few minutes and just give some shout outs, like who has helped you get to where you are. Clearly, your grandfather, Mr. RT, right, had
Oh
a
yeah.
hand in getting you where you are. Who else do we want to shout out and give some love to here?
I would definitely say my grandfather, my mother. She was never the pushy type, but she was always supportive in the background.
Holding you accountable.
Oh yeah, always held me accountable. There's a guy who was kind of like my first boss, I guess, when I graduated from college. But I kept contact with this guy over the years. He's in California, an Italian guy named Sal Rufino. I remember I had to drive him around one time because he broke his arm, and we went to all these job sites on the East Coast. And we'd go everywhere, and everywhere we went, we'd have these 5-course meals. And talk about 5-course meals. And sometimes it'd be 2 of them at a time, but we'd always go work out too. So that guy, he's kind of kept me in the loop. There's probably been countless people. There's a guy named Mike who was a recruiter. He really encouraged me because I grew up in St. Louis and I started working for a company that was in St. Louis, but they're out of business now, but they were a company called HB. And they were like this national design builder doing healthcare, but they had work all over. He says, man, I was thinking about quitting the company. I just want to stay here. He was like, I would encourage you to take at least a year, go out, travel, go to a job site, learn. And if you don't like it, you can always come back. And that was probably the moment that sparked me to actually, hey, get out, go see them. From that moment forward, there's no looking back. So he was a big help in that standpoint to actually push me out there to say, hey, get out of your comfort zone, go see the world. And so since then, it's just keep it rolling. But yeah, there's probably been countless people, even from the lean standpoint, George Zettel. And I had several conversations with George, and come to find out, he was like one of the early pioneers. And I just saying, hey, George, even if it's a question like, where can I find this at, or who should I talk to about this? So just expanding the network. But it's like I said, LinkedIn to me has been one of the biggest tools to be able to reach people in places where you probably would never have any contact with them otherwise, especially from this standpoint, lean construction, continuous improvement, or respect for people, whatever you want to call it. It has been a great help to just be able to have this like lean family.
Yeah, everybody looking out for one another and just wanting better for the industry. That's all it is, because we have so much room for improvement. And I can get up every day and I just thank the Lord. Wow, I'm in an industry where I think Keon said it best. We trip over $100 bills every single day on our job sites, whether that's stacks of drywall that we're moving back and forth, left and right, or logistics that just don't make sense. Like whatever it is, there are so many different ways that we can improve
Absolutely
what we do. Man.
And I believe I was listening to I forget the guy's name, George Trichellis, I think is his name. And there was a book that was written called The Harada Myth. And the older guy who was talking about this book. He was like, I want people to be not excited about Friday coming, but I want them to be excited about Monday coming, to be like, all right, I'm getting up, I'm getting ready to go to work and do something I love. And I think that this movement has given us an opportunity to get people excited about going to work on Mondays. Man, I'm going to work. I'm excited about the improvement we're going to do next week, or how we're going to make the job better. So just if we can get in that mindset and get to that point, that'd be great.
That's a fabulous point. And I think that's like the best leaders in the world in our industry, like they create environments where it's just fun to go to work and it's
Yep.
fun to be a part of the team. And I think Jason Schroeder says it's got to be as addictive as Facebook, as informative as YouTube, and as easy to access as Wikipedia. Those are the three things. And when we can do that, we just create an environment where people are happy and they can thrive and they can just be themselves and perform, and they don't have to look at the boss for the right answer. There is like, it's what's right over who's right every
Yep.
single time. And when we can create those environments as leaders, then we've succeeded. Then our culture on the job site is something that we can be proud of. And people are just, and you said it earlier, people will run through brick walls for you. They've got respect. And we're not saying just like be the 1970s empowerment leader. Yeah, whatever, man. Like, you could just do it, bro. I don't care.
Yeah.
We're not saying be a dictator, like you got to freaking do it this way, da 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 da. But we are saying there's a leader in between that knows when to be the dictator, when it's a life and death matter or the job's like super behind. And then there's also the leader that knows how to use that 70s empowerment style where I'm encouraging people to speak up and to be themselves and to own what their work. And there's a good balance between the two. And that's what a lean leader is. That's what a lean builder does, is they know the ability to blend between those lines. In fact, here in a couple of weeks, I'm sure Jesse Hernandez, right,
Yep.
who actually just released another book. It's all about relationships. What is it? Lean in Love, 5S in Relationships. And I'm telling you right now, that book is golden. In fact, I've got it right here. That's another one that I'm freaking like just blown away with. And you get spots throughout the book, if I can find any of them. One, they've got pretty amazing doodles, but then they give you like opportunity to go in there and write, and it's like workbooks. And anyway, Jesse and I here in a couple of weeks are going to be doing a, what do we call it, a day in the life of a trade partner, and I get to play the superintendent who is the dictator. Like, we're going to do a couple of little skits, and we're going to be last planning. We're going to have
Yeah.
the audience is going to be in, and you're going to be a part of the last planner system, and you're going to feel it from a trade partner's perspective when I'm like, you can't do that, or you got to do this. And then you're going to feel it from the total reverse side of that, like, I don't care, man, like, whatever, LR, what are we going to do today, man? And so I'm pretty fired up about that, to be able to show general contractors what does it feel like to be a trade partner. Like, how are they taking in what you're laying down in all these meetings? And so the goal there, right, the hope is that somebody resonates with, holy cow, that's the way I run a meeting, whether it's on one extreme or the other. And for them to realize that it's okay to be on one extreme or the other, as long as you're staying within that medium and you're not always on one side or always on that other side. You've got to
Yep.
learn how to play each one of those roles.
Okay.
So you got to be there. It's August 25th.
All right.
It's a free webinar, and we're going to have a good old time with it. Would love to have you a part of that.
Awesome.
So all this traveling, all this, trying to get folks into the industry, that wears on you, wears on your own personal mental health.
Absolutely.
Take me through, what things does LR do to restore yourself and really care about yourself?
For me, I think restoration starts with being outside in nature, being able to, after work, unwind a little bit, go out, whether it's walking a few miles or running a few miles, just get that fresh air and that good vitamin D into the life, especially during the spring to summer months. You got more daylight, so you're able to get out. But that to me is where you can gather your thoughts. If you're going on a walk for 2 or 3 miles, or you're out there running, gives you a chance to just get away from everything, decompress, and it's just you and some shoes hitting the pavement.
Amen. That's my favorite thing to do as well. I got a little trail here that I walk around. It's been a little bit, but in not listening to a book, not taking phone calls, but just listening to nature. It's the water running or the birds chirping. Yeah, there's nothing like that.
Yep.
What else that you want to get in here, or anything that we missed? What are your thoughts right
I got one more book. It's not, I guess it would be the fourth book, but it's Mike Rother, the Toyota Cotter book.
now? Yeah.
I would say it's a definite read, because the one thing that stuck out to me about that book is don't blame people, blame the process. And a lot of times in construction, we're good at saying, you did this, you did that, versus, hey, how did the process fail us, and what is the opportunity here to correct the process? So it almost gets you focused in on the current condition or the current state, what you want the future to look like, and the PDCA going up these stairs. But it kind of gives you an explanation into this guy going to do research on Toyota and what he found out. Because Toyota is a place that'll say, hey, come in, look at everything we did. And just because you see all the tools, that mean you can emulate the results. So how do you get to that teaching of that kata? I think that's a good book to get into as well.
Absolutely. And my mind immediately shifts to Jason Schroeder's urinal example. Have you
Yeah,
ever,
yeah,
where he was peeing on his own feet? And of course, the manufacturer is going to blame him for not using it. But there's
yeah.
one, the Toto urinal. It's got more of a bowl. And our
Mm-hmm.
female listeners are probably like, what the hell are you talking about? Call Jason Schroeder and ask him. That's all
Yeah,
I have to say. This has been awesome, LR. I'm a huge fan. Again, I'm here to support you in any and every way. I love what you're doing. You let me know what that looks like. I very much value your texts. I love being in your network. Would love to make it more of a point. We got to get in front of each other physically at some point. Maybe we can
absolutely.
take that walk together and figure out what that looks like. But thanks for coming on, man. Super appreciate it. You're very impressive. And you need to own the fact that you're a lean leader and you're like on expert level, man. I've learned a few things from you here, and I just look forward to continuing that journey of learning with you. Thank you.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me on the show, Hoops.